How 6,000 Scots Crushed 20,000 English. The Astonishing Saga of Bannockburn. 1314, June 1314. The Scottish Highlands. A modest force of starving, lightly armed farmers and fighters faces one of Europe's most formidable war machines. On one side stand 6,000 Scots led by Robert the Bruce, a monarch without a realm. On the other, 20,000 English troops, including the most dreaded, heavily armored knights in Europe. The English hold the advantage in numbers, gear, and battlefield experience. A Scottish triumph appears impossible. Yet, within 2 days, one of the greatest military shocks of the Middle Ages will unfold here. This is the tale of Bannockburn. To grasp why this clash mattered so deeply, we must rewind several years. Scotland was no longer free. King Edward I of England, known as the Hammer of the Scots, had ruthlessly subdued the country. Scottish lords were forced to swear allegiance. Those who refused were put to death. The famed William Wallace had resisted, but he too was captured, executed, and displayed as a grim warning. Scotland seemed finished. But then Robert the Bruce stepped forward, a nobleman with a claim to the throne. In 1306, he killed a rival inside a church, an act of sacrilege that nearly destroyed him. Instead of fleeing, he crowned himself King of Scotland. The English mocked him. A king without territory, without soldiers, excommunicated by the church. Still, Bruce refused to yield. Year after year, he retook fortress after fortress. He fought a guerrilla campaign, avoided pitched battles, and exhausted the English occupiers. By 1314, he held nearly all of Scotland. Only one major stronghold remained. Stirling Castle. Stirling was Scotland's gateway. Whoever held it controlled the main route between the Highlands and the south. Bruce's brother Edward laid siege for months. At last, he struck an agreement with the English commander. If no English relief army arrived by June 24, the castle would surrender. It was a trap, though not for the Scots. When King Edward II of England learned of the deal, he had no choice. He could not let such a vital fortress fall uncontested. It would be disgraceful. So he assembled the largest English army seen in years. 20,000 men, 2,500 heavy cavalry, the elite corps of English power, 3,000 Welsh longbowmen whose arrows could pierce armor, and thousands of infantry. This host marched north, certain they would crush the Scottish revolt once and for all. Robert the Bruce knew what was coming. And he prepared. He selected his ground with care. A narrow stretch between the Bannockburn, a small stream, and the thick woods of New Park. The English could not spread out their superior numbers there. Their cavalry could not outflank. Bruce ordered thousands of small pits dug, concealed with branches and turf, deadly traps for horses. He drilled his troops in a formation called the schiltron, tight circles of men bristling with 3-meter spears like living hedgehogs. Against cavalry, these ranks were nearly unbreakable. On June 23, the English arrived. What followed became legend. An English knight, Henry de Bohun, saw Robert the Bruce riding ahead of his men, armed only with a battle axe and mounted on a small horse. De Bohun sensed glory. He lowered his lance and charged. The King of Scotland, on his small pony, rode straight toward one of England's most feared knights. At the final instant, Bruce swerved aside. As de Bohun thundered past, Bruce rose in his stirrups and swung his axe downward. The blow split the knight's helmet and skull. The axe shaft shattered from the force. Silence fell. Then the Scots erupted in cheers. Their king had slain an English champion in single combat. Morale surged. That evening, English commanders argued. Some urged delay, rest, better ground. But King Edward was impatient. Stirling's deadline was the next day. He ordered an assault at dawn. It would be disastrous. On June 24 at first light, the English advanced. They had to cross the Bannockburn and funnel through the cramped terrain. As usual, heavy cavalry led the charge. They expected the Scots to scatter, as they often had before mounted knights. But the Scots stood firm. The schiltrons held. The first cavalry wave smashed into a forest of spears. Horses shrieked and toppled. Knights behind could not halt and plunged into the wreckage. More mounts stumbled into hidden pits. Once unhorsed, armored riders struggled to rise. English archers tried to assist, but the ground was too tight, the lines too close. Their arrows struck friend and foe alike. Bruce had held back 500 light cavalry. Now he unleashed them against the archers. Without heavy support, the bowmen fled. Hour after hour, the English were compressed into the narrow strip. At the front, men battled the spear walls. Behind them, thousands pressed forward, unable to fight. Heat suffocated them. Soldiers in full armor collapsed from exhaustion. The dead lay so thick they formed grim barriers. Then came the decisive moment. Bruce had kept a reserve, the men of Argyll under Angus Og. Fresh fighters. He hurled them into the fray. At the same time, figures appeared on a nearby hill. The Scottish baggage train, servants and camp followers, armed with whatever they could grab. From afar, they resembled another army. For the weary English, it was overwhelming. Someone cried, "Treason!" Others shouted, "Retreat!" Panic rippled. King Edward was pulled away by his guards, nearly by force. His army disintegrated. What should have been an orderly withdrawal became a rout. Soldiers cast aside weapons and armor, anything that slowed them. They rushed into the Bannockburn, attempting to swim across. Many drowned beneath their own weight. Others were cut down by pursuing Scots. The carnage was severe. Entire English noble lines vanished. More than 4,000 English troops fell that day. Many more were captured, including dozens of nobles. The ransoms Bruce gained funded his kingdom for years. Scottish losses were under 500. Bannockburn was more than a battle. It proved England was not invincible, that discipline and strategy could overcome superior numbers and equipment. Robert the Bruce was now unquestionably King of Scotland. England would attempt reconquest for years, but after Bannockburn, the tide had turned. In 1328, England formally acknowledged Scottish independence in the Treaty of Edinburgh.